Welcome to the third dimension. The United States and Britain, backed by allies, launched attacks against the Houthis on January the 11th, a day after the UN Security Council condemned in the strongest terms the rebel group's attacks on Red Sea shipping and demanded they stop. The Houthis, backed by Iran, stepped up their attacks in November the 19th, following the outbreak of the war in Gaza. They claim the Red Sea attacks are part of their support for Palestinians. Attacks by the Houthis on ships in and around the Red Sea have entangled the trade between Asia and Europe and created fears of a widening war in the Middle East. While the United States, the UK and Western allies have insisted the strikes are not escalatory, it comes as tensions simmer in the Middle East as the Israeli bombardment of Gaza continues. To discuss the Houthi escalation in the Red Sea and its implications on Yemen peace process, joins me from Washington, D.C., His Excellency Mr. Tim Lindeking, the United States Special Envoy for Yemen. Mr. Lindeking, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. On one of your initial statements on how the war in Gaza would affect hard-won progress on peace in Yemen, you told U.S. Peace Institute that Houthi escalation on Gaza was your worst fear. Your worst fear, Mr. Lindeking, seems to have become a reality, hasn't it?
Well, I have even worse fears than what we're seeing now. I think what we're trying to do here is, get back to the Yemen peace process, in fact, which enjoyed such strong support internationally, and really over the last 2 years brought tangible benefits to the Yemeni people and created the sense, the conviction, the determination that this war could end. And brought, a roadmap forward that would lead in that direction, that's supported by all of the parties in Yemen. And that's really a tremendous achievement. What's detracting from that, unfortunately, is the Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. And it's for that reason, as you referred to, that there have been attacks not on Houthis, but on Houthi military capability. I think there's a very important distinction there. These attacks are aimed strictly at the capability that the Houthis are bringing to bear to attack ships on the Red Sea, which is in violation of all international norms, international law, and they are attacking ships that have no connection whatsoever to either Israel or the Gaza conflict. This is not in Yemen's interests, and so our actions are designed to prevent and put pressure on the Houthis to stop these attacks on international shipping.
Okay, so again, talking about the strikes, Mr. Lindeking, okay, as you stated clearly that the main aim of such strikes is to degrade Houthi military capabilities, and we agree with that, okay. Yet, some observers, and especially Yemeni observers, it would be interesting to bring some views, okay. Some Yemeni observers, they have raised concerns about that those strikes might empower the Houthis. The question is, what is your own assessment to such concerns?
Well, I don't think the strikes are beneficial in any, the attacks on shipping are beneficial in any way. I think that's the root of the problem. That's where the escalation took place. And that's why the United States and a growing number of other countries who are frustrated and very impatient with the threats to international navigation, that's why this coalition is increasing. As the anger and I think the frustration builds among all of the countries who have been affected by these attacks on shipping. It's very important for Yemenis to understand that this type of behavior from the Houthis is not helping Yemen. Rather, it's meant to address a problem, right, Gaza, but it's creating another problem, and it's doing nothing to help the Palestinian people. It's doing nothing to help the people in Gaza as well. It's just drawing negative attention. This is not where the United States wanted to be at this particular point in time. We want to be focused on a peace process, on a roadmap, on amplifying the significant positive progress that's been made with the roadmap and peace in Yemen over the last 2 years. That's where this administration wants the focus to be.
Okay. Now, we talked about some concerns about Yemeni observers, Mr. Lindeking, and it would be also interesting to bring in, views of US observers, and here I refer to Bradley Bowman, Senior Director of the Foundation of Defense of Democracies. He said that knocking out existing missiles in Yemen without a comprehensive effort to counter Iranian weapons is like, and I quote, cleaning up puddles in your home while ignoring the leak in the roof. The question is, what is the extent of the Iran's involvement with the Houthi attacks on the Red Sea?
Well, unfortunately, Iran's involvement is very extensive, and that's another concerning element of this whole picture that we're talking about, because what we see is an Iran that is aiding and supporting and encouraging and arming these attacks on shipping, feeling that Iran benefits from this type of destabilizing action in the region. This is, of course, not really the case, because this will not end well, I think, for Iranian interests, because these are dragging Yemen down away from, a peaceful prospects of a peaceful resolution of the Yemen conflict. So this is not in Yemen's best interest. I would never say that Iran has Yemen's best interests in mind. And so, unfortunately, we are seeing this type of very negative behavior from the Iranians, which is only, adding fuel to this fire. And so I think the sooner the Iranians can change their perspective, get back to supporting a peace effort in Yemen, that is what the region and what the Yemeni people, I think, are eager to see.
Okay. Now, always talking about Iran and Iran involvement, Mr. Lindeking, I remember that President Biden, immediately after the strike, he gave a famous statement saying that he sent a special message to Iran. Okay? So the question is there a U.S. strategy, a clear U.S. strategy to curb such Iranian involvement?
There is a very clear U.S. strategy, which is to use a variety of messaging, but also, the other elements of our national power here to address this threat. And I think the wisest course of action right now is for the Houthis to stop the attacks on shipping and for the Iranians to cease their support for this. We've seen Iran acting out in other theaters as well that has drawn responses from us and others, and I think that is destabilizing and certainly escalatory. It's escalating the problems in the Middle East. It's not addressing any of the particular issues that need to be addressed.
Okay. Now, if we move to another issue, Mr. Lindeking, on January the 17th, the U.S. State Department announced designations of Houthis as a specially designated global terrorist. Now, according to the designation, it will be effective on February the 16th. Now, the question is, why is that 30-day delay?
So for this designation, which again is targeting and a response to Houthi attacks on shipping, it's not meant to destabilize Yemen or antagonize a particular sector of society. This is meant to address the attacks on shipping. And in order for us to do that effectively and not harm Yemen's already very delicate and fragile humanitarian crisis, and to ensure that the UN and international organizations have the space to maneuver, so there is no worsening of the humanitarian situation, we need that period, this 30-day period, to get the carve-outs and the licensing in place to ensure that this vital humanitarian activity can continue. Remember that we are the largest donor to Yemen's humanitarian benefit, and more than $5 billion over the course of the war. So there's no desire on the part of the United States to harm the Yemeni people. On the contrary, we think it's the actions of the Houthis that are harming the Yemenis and putting distance between Yemen and the peace effort that was progressing so well up until this point.
Okay, so the last point, Mr. Lyndon King, okay, so amid all this kind of tension, escalation, okay, what are the prospects of peace in Yemen?
I have to believe that Yemenis are tired of the war in Yemen. It has taken way too many lives. It has disrupted infrastructure, it disrupted health systems, sanitation. All of these types of concerns are things that we want to try to alleviate through a peace effort. After all, the only way that Yemen's humanitarian challenges can seriously and definitively get addressed is through a peace settlement. And so there is a way forward. The UN has a roadmap. They're working on it. We want to see that Yemen can return its focus here away from attacks on shipping that are detrimental to Yemen's interest and doing nothing to help the Palestinians. With that focus on the peace effort, this is where the United States, I think, can rally the international community to make a difference and end this war forever.
Okay. With that remark, we come to the end of this interview. Mr. Lyndon King, thank you so much for your time and insights, and thank you for talking to Yemenis through Yemen Today TV.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all for this time. See you next week with a new edition of The Third Dimension.